Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this CarGurus webinar about how to build trust and influence sales. I'm Tim Rose, the editor of AM, and I'll be chairing the webinar. And with me is today's presenter, James Drake, who's CarGurus Senior Manager for PR and Communications for the UK. And in a moment, James will begin his presentation. But before he does, can I just remind you how you can be involved? You'll have joined us in listen-only mode. However, you should have a dialog box on your screen, which you can type into. So we would encourage you, please, to take part. After the presentation, we'll allow probably 20 minutes or so of Q&A with our presenter. So we do encourage you to type in your questions and comments, anything you want to clarify or find out more about while the webinar is live. So that's enough for me for now. Over to you, James, please, for your presentation.
Thank you. Okay, hello and welcome to this webinar on building trust and influencing sales. As Tim said, my name is James Drake and I head up public relations for CarGurus here in the UK. Firstly, a little about CarGurus. Based on its growth in average monthly unique visitors, CarGurus is the fastest growing auto shopping site in the UK. It's also worth noting that over 50% of our traffic comes from mobile devices, and we currently have thousands of dealers using CarGurus all across the UK. CarGurus is the fastest growing automotive marketplace in the UK thanks to its commitment to becoming the world's most trusted and transparent car buying platform. To help gain a deeper understanding of how that trust is built and the extent to which it informs car buying decisions, we created the CarGurus Car Buying Trust Index, a robust, detailed examination of the role that trust plays in the purchasing decisions of UK car buyers. Whether it's believing that a car will provide a problem-free ownership experience, that a manufacturer is acting responsibly, or that a dealership is offering a fair price, trust plays a crucial but often unseen role in the car buying process. For car buyers who are often making one of the biggest purchases they'll ever make, having that element of trust in everything from the dealership to the manufacturer is even more important. Technology advances and societal changes mean that the automotive industry is approaching a crossroads, with car manufacturers and dealers being forced to decide which path to follow over the coming years. More than ever, trust is the key to long-term, sustainable success. This presentation will give you a peek into the CarGurus Car Buyer Trust Index so that you can better understand what earns car buyers' trust so that you can know what steps to take to build it with your customers. Firstly, we'll quickly talk about the methodology we implemented in creating the Trust Index. To create the Car Buyer Trust Index, CarGurus partnered with Global Web Index, or GWI, a leading market research company with a data set that represents more than 2 billion consumers worldwide. GWI contacted previous survey respondents based on past car purchases and intent to buy, and then presented them with a survey about trust in the car buying process. In the survey, respondents were asked a range of questions about their perceptions of and trust in 21 different car brands. They were also asked questions about their purchasing journey and their trust in the automotive industry at large. The total sample size was 2,183 internet users in the UK, with all respondents aged 18 to 64. In order to have a representative cross-section of car buyers, the study surveyed the following groups: those that have purchased a car in the last 6 months, those that have purchased a car in the last 6 months and intend to buy another car in the next 6 months, those that intend to purchase a car in the next 6 months, and then finally, all other car owners. Informed by the industry expertise of CarGurus, the data-driven insight of GWI, and the academic studies of trust by research professor Brené Brown, the CarGurus Car Buyer Trust Index focuses on 5 key factors that build trust for car buyers. Integrity, which can be described as delivering on promises. Reliability, which is providing a problem-free ownership experience. Transparency, being transparent about problems and taking responsibility. Genuineness, showing genuine concern for consumer needs and acting in their best interests. And finally, social conscience, which is defined as showing commitment to social causes and the environment. Each respondent was asked how important each of the 5 factors is to them when deciding to purchase a car. They were then asked to evaluate 4 brands on those factors, with brands selected at random from a pool of those that respondents either own or said that they were well aware of. Based on how important a respondent rated each factor, a weight was assigned to them and the trust index calculated as a weighted measure. In this presentation, we will review the findings of the Trust Index survey broken down by 3 sections. Trust in the automotive industry in general, trust in the car buying process, and finally, trust in the future state of automotive, specifically the growth of autonomous vehicles. First, we'll review the findings on trust in the automotive industry in general, but before we do that, we're going to run a quick poll. So we'd like you to answer, does the UK auto industry put consumer and society interests first? And you can select from yes, no, or unsure. Okay, if we switch back to see the results. Okay, so thanks for taking part in that poll. Let's look at how it lines up compared to the results we got. So we have said yes 13%, no 67%, and unsure 20%. The UK automotive industry is under more scrutiny than ever, with greater awareness among consumers about car emissions, safety and security. When asked whether they felt the car industry put the interests of the consumer and society at large first, the response from those surveyed could best be described as neutral. Nearly half said they were unsure, while 29% expressed a positive sentiment towards the auto industry. However, 23%, nearly a quarter of all those surveyed, took a negative view towards the automotive industry. The report suggests that men are slightly more trusting in the industry than women, with 31% of men saying that they trust the car industry has their best interests in heart, compared with only 25% of women. In fact, over half of female car buyers said they were uncertain about where they stand on the issue, making women 10% more likely to be ambivalent or uncertain about whether to trust the automotive industry than men. This gender trust gap could explain why the industry's previous efforts to communicate and engage with female car buyers have been less successful than campaigns aimed at men. However, this also means that there are further opportunities for manufacturers to engage with female buyers, but only if their message is trustworthy. More encouraging for the industry is the opportunity with younger buyers. Breaking down the results by generation, Generation Z and Millennials have the most trust in the automotive industry, with 37% saying they trust the industry to put consumer and societal interests first. This is compared with 27% of Generation X respondents and just 15% of baby boomers. Outlining the stark generational differences, 36% of older buyers said that they actively distrust the car industry's intention, compared with just 16% of Generation Z and Millennials. In order to understand how to improve trust among car buyers, we must first identify important different elements of trust are to them. Switching back to this slide on the 5 key factors that build trust among car buyers, some of these factors are more important to buyers than others. Integrity is the most important, followed closely by reliability, which was second with 78.6%. Transparency is a close third, and being genuinely concerned about consumer needs and acting in the best interests is fourth. Finally, trust in a brand's commitment to social causes and the environment is last, although still over 50% of respondents said that they felt it was important. There are some clear disparities between what different generations deem important when purchasing a car. Respondents of the survey aged over 55 placed the greatest importance on problem-free ownership experience, with 91% of them ranking reliability as being the most important factor. This is compared to just 71% for those aged 34 and under. Social consciousness is the least important factor for baby boomers. For the younger generation of car buyers, integrity is the most important factor. It is, however, also the most important to Generation X buyers at 82% and second most important to baby boomer buyers at 2 percentage points lower than reliability. Social consciousness is the least important factor for all three generations, but is notably more important to Generation Z and millennial buyers than it is to baby boomers. This position is indicative of younger buyers' greater concern with a brand's ethical and social responsibility and suggests that positive communication of a brand's social consciousness could help increase their level of trust in it. So, while the older generations are more concerned with getting a product and service that works for them, the younger audience has a greater interest in whether a car brand aligns with their social values. This could, in some cases, be the tipping point which encourages them to select which brand to purchase. As noted earlier in this report, the younger car buying audience is both most socially conscious and most trusting of the car industry, a combination that underlines how critical it is for automotive brands to highlight their social and ethical credentials moving forwards. Next, we're going to talk about consumers' trust in the car buying process in general. For most buyers, research plays a huge part in the car buying process. The wealth of information online has totally transformed the car buying journey beyond recognition, although more traditional sources, such as recommendations from friends and family, remain key factors. The inaugural CarGurus Car Buyer Trust Index shows that overall, the two most used sources of information for those researching a new or used car purchase were dealer websites and asking friends or family. Online car review sites were next most used, followed by car brand websites. Online marketplaces such as CarGurus were also popular, while social media was a long way down the list, with just 8% of those surveys saying that they used it as a way of researching a car purchase. The index highlights differences in how younger and older buyers rate the importance of each source. Online car review sites rank highly for all three age groups. Online car marketplace sites are similarly very important for younger and middle-aged buyers, but not for older buyers. Online marketplaces are not nearly as important in their online car searches. The report suggests that younger and middle-aged buyers consider external sources to be significantly more important than older buyers. This could indicate that younger generations are more engaged with pre-purchase research, or that older buyers feel more comfortable making their own decisions. Car review websites and online videos are two areas that older buyers found more important than younger generations, however, suggesting that car brands or dealers wishing to reach this audience should consider focusing on these key channels. When we ask the question, on a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being do not trust at all and 5 being totally trust, how much would you trust each of the following sources if you were considering purchasing a car in the near future? We found that authorised franchise outlets were the most trusted of the bunch. In fact, that score is 4% better than the next most trusted source, which is buying from a friend or family member. Next were independent used car dealers, while car supermarkets have a slightly weaker rating at 30%. Despite the report showing high levels of trust in other consumers' opinions when researching a purchase, private sales are the least trusted option for buying a car, with a trust rating of just 22%. What really brings people into the showroom door is the cars on the forecourt, what you have and how much it costs. It's an offshoot of today's research first, dealership second environment. People don't want to waste their time visiting dealers that don't have the car they want at the price they want to pay, and figuring out exactly what's out there is part of where their shopping journey is so fragmented. We also see that overall, consumers want a good deal. It doesn't have to be the absolute best deal, but it does have to be fair. This is CarGurus data based on our deal ratings. Remember, we rate every car on our site according to how good its price is, considering the make, model, age, trim, location, and many more characteristics. The data here shows the leads that come through in our site broken down by the deal ratings we have. Worth pointing out that all else includes a significant amount of cars that don't get deal ratings, either because they're too unusual or because there is significant missing data from the listing. About 80% of CarGurus email leads go to fair, good, or great deals. That holds true across both franchise and independent dealers on the site. However, we see a slight price advantage for a franchise dealer where there are a greater percentage of leads on fair deals than great deals. Perhaps this is because they have the brand association. This validation step is even more important in a disconnected shopping process where consumers don't have a lot of expertise or a smooth, continuous research path to give them confidence that they're getting a reasonable deal. And if I can just say to Tim, we've got a slight technical issue in that the webinar seems to have stopped casting.
I've not noticed that this end, James.
Seems like
we're now on the how people buy, why a franchise dealer is more trustworthy slide. Is that not producing?
Is that still working? Right,
it's now showing 46% official warranty.
So is that disappeared if I go back up one click?
Yes, yeah, that's gone.
Okay, fine. I have no screen at this end for some reason, but I'll soldier on regardless. Which I'm not quite sure what's happening, but anyway, okay.
Okay.
So, why are authorised franchises the most trusted outlet? There are a handful of features that help them stand out, some more than others. The survey suggests that official warranty given by franchise dealers is the most important feature. The next two most important factors for buyers is that a car bought as an authorised franchise would likely lead to a problem-free ownership experience, and that respondents had positive buying experiences at such outlets in the past, both at 29%. The legal protection offered by authorised franchises was another significant factor with a 25% rating. Respondents also rated their belief that official dealers are clear about the buying process and costs involved. Great after-sales service rated at 21%. And finally, and some way down the list, with a rating of just 14%, was the belief that an official dealer would charge a fair price. All this suggests that many car buyers are happy to pay a premium for what they perceive to be a superior product and service, and that the trust consumers have in these outlets is often built up through a long-term relationship with them.
Those have all come through fine, James, by the way.
Okay, fine. I'm just having to, if I end up on the wrong slide, please tell me. For those that trust independent car dealers, there are some similar yet different factors compared to franchise dealers that matter to build that trust. Past experience is the number one reason, followed closely by their view that those dealers charged a fair price for the vehicle. Similarly to franchise dealers, an official warranty on the vehicle is also important, with just under a third of responses. Recommendations from friends and family and their experiences is very important for developing trust, and rounding out the top 5 factors, taking the time to check their cars to ensure problem-free ownership builds trust. When looking at attributes to independent used car dealers, it's interesting to note that 2 of the top 3 reasons that consumers put their trust in them are the same as for authorised franchises, even though independent dealers are less trusted overall. These are positive past experiences, first for independent dealers and third for authorised franchises, and warranty coverage, again, first for authorised franchises and third for independents. The big difference is the offer of fair prices, which is the second most important for those trusting of independent dealers. Those that trust independent dealers put much more value in being charged a fair price and recommendations from friends and family than those that trust franchise dealers who care more about warranties and problem-free ownership. Gender has no bearing on how much independent used car dealers are trusted, with a rating of 32%. Both men and women. 32% for both men and women. However, there are large differences when the results are split by age. Younger buyers are far more trusting of independent dealers than older buyers, as overall trust ratings of 42% and 19% respectively illustrate. Generation X buyers, those aged 35 to 54, sit in the middle with a rating of 28%. When asked why they had less trust for independent dealers, the most common answer for survey respondents was pushy sales staff. The fear that they would be taken advantage of was almost as prevalent, while a lack of transparency and a fear of being overcharged were also concerns. Finally, we're at our last section, where we'll examine trust in the future of automotive. But before we do that, there's time for another quick poll. So, Tim, if you'd be able to read out the results, because I can't see them.
Certainly. So we're just showing the poll screen now if people would vote, and we'll give it a few seconds. Okay, shall we move? And the results. Well, the results are what percentage of UK car buyers trust the government to deliver infrastructure to aid the use of electric cars? The results are 55%. What's that? 55% said 7%, 31% said 50%, 5% said 36%, and 2% 7%.
Okay, so let's have a look at how those line up compared to the responses we got from our surveyed respondents. So does that switch to the next slide? Okay. I can't see.
Yes, we're now showing 5% of UK car buyers.
That's great. The shift towards electrification and the introduction of fully autonomous cars are the two main issues that dominate any discussion about the future of the automotive industry. The CarGurus Car Buyer Trust Index suggests that UK car buyers' trust in each is currently at a very low level. When asked to what extent they trusted the government to deliver a suitable infrastructure to aid the use and adoption of electric cars in the next 5 years, just 5% said they had complete trust in it. The majority, 44%, expressed a neutral opinion, whilst 12% said that they had no trust at all. A deeper look shows that UK car buyers have different levels of trust in the government to deliver the appropriate electric car infrastructure depending on their age bracket. Across the board, about half of respondents in all age brackets were generally neutral on the topic, but as you move from one age bracket to the next, the level of trust changes. Older car buyers are more distrustful than younger buyers, and younger buyers are more trustful than older buyers. In fact, Generation Z and Millennials are 13% more trustful than baby boomers. Given that we're still in the early stages of development of fully autonomous cars, it's perhaps not surprising that car buyers' trust in them is currently limited. When asked to what extent they would trust a fully autonomous car to drive them to their chosen destination, only 6% of respondents said they would trust it completely. Those with a neutral opinion accounted for 29%, whilst 48% responded said that they had limited trust or no trust at all. The inaugural CarGurus Car Buyer Trust Index highlights genuine opportunities for car brands and dealers to generate and build trust by helping them to understand the role that trust plays in the car buying process and how the nature of trust changes across gender and age groups. One of the key findings is that integrity is crucial to building trust among car buyers. For brands and the industry at large to gain and maintain trust, it is vital that consumers feel that promises are delivered on. In short, actions must match words, so when brands deliver, they should shout about it. The report has shown the scale of the task to build trust among more cynical demographics. It shows that women tend to be less willing to trust than male buyers, so brands will need to work extra hard to win the trust of female car buyers. They should also be paying special attention to keeping promises and acting in a transparent way, because these are areas where women over-index compared to men. Unsurprisingly, trust differs across age groups, and while the social consciousness of a brand ranked the lowest to the average car buyer, it is more important to establish trust among Generation Z and Millennial car buyers. To appeal to the more socially conscious, younger car buyers, the car buyers of the future, brands may need to focus on aligning themselves with their values and priorities, whether that's by championing environmentally friendly causes or pioneering electrification. The index shows that although car buyers want to feel they're getting a good deal, being able to trust the outlet or seller is just as important. This is an area where independent dealers and car supermarkets have work to do, and the report suggests that better transparency and a more proactive approach to communication and the customer recommendations could be an effective strategy. All visions of the future of the automotive industry centre on electric and autonomous cars. The index suggests that trust in the successful introduction of these is currently limited, but this is likely to evolve over time. As we move forwards, the CarGurus Car Buyer Trust Index will continue to examine the role that trust plays in the car buying process. The full report will be published in the coming weeks, so keep an eye out for it, and we hope that it, along with this webinar, will prove to be an invaluable resource for car brands, dealers and buyers alike. Thank you. That concludes the presentation, and I believe there is some time for some questions.
Fantastic. Thank you, James. Yes, we've had a few questions come in already, but there is still time for our listeners to submit any more they wish to ask. So one here, you said about women being less trusting in the auto industry than men. Do you see any differences in how the women rate the 5 key factors to build trust versus how men do?
Sure. Well, it's interesting because obviously the general consensus of how women trust the industry is lower than men, but the way that they rank the 5 key factors is actually very similar. So both genders ranked integrity as the most important factor, and they also ranked social consciousness as the least important factor. The only real difference lies with how they value transparency. So according to our research, transparency is slightly more important for women than men. But overall, I'd say that they have a very similar opinion of how trust is built and the most important key factors.
Okay, thank you, James. Another question here. How would you recommend building integrity in the industry?
It's a good question. I mean, the most simple answer is that you need to act with integrity in all interactions with customers, which is a bit of a get out, but it's simply the truth. Without, and it's not surprising that it's the most important factor, because however transparent you are and however genuine you are, if you're not acting with integrity, then that kind of is the underlying factor for everything. So it's a bit of a short answer, but it's the truth. You just need to simply act with integrity. Okay.
I'm sure if people display that on a daily basis, then that's reflected in how the customer sees them. Absolutely. So,
yeah, of course. If you interact, if you yourself are in a situation where you're interacting with another business and they display integrity, it kind of is an incredible foundation to building trust with that person, whether that's a building contractor you're talking to about using your house, or if you yourself are in, I don't know, if you're in the Apple store and you're looking at buying a new phone, that the integrity of the person you're dealing with is fundamental.
Absolutely. Thank you, James. There's a couple of questions come in about car brands. The first one, again, kind of relating to trust. What about car brands? Are there differences in which brands different segments buy, such as, say, the brands that millennials choose compared to the baby boomers?
Yeah, so the Car Buyer Trust Index goes in depth on specific car brands. To be honest, it could probably be the subject of a webinar all in itself, which is why we didn't jump into it in this webinar, because it's so complicated. On a very high level, Mercedes-Benz was the most trusted car brand in the UK. It was first place for reliability. It also scored highly for social consciousness and integrity, which, as we just discussed, is so important. You can learn all about those other top brands. So there's 21 brands that were included in the survey and where they rank in our report, and also how they did on the 5 different key factors of trust by checking out the report, which, as I said, is going to be available in the next couple of weeks.
Okay, you've answered a couple of the extra questions there. One was which is the most trusted brand. So as you just said, Mercedes-Benz, and also somebody was asking when the report will be out exactly. So is that's short?
I believe it's about, I think it's 2 weeks on Monday. I believe that it's going to be published.
Okay, fantastic. Another one. It overlaps slightly with one of the early questions, but what would you say is one quick thing that dealers can start doing today to build more trust in their buyers?
Sure, that's a really good question. So I've obviously just bombarded everyone with loads of different information, but probably the quickest and easiest thing that people can do today is just encourage your buyers to leave a review for the dealership, focusing on their experience and the customer service they received. So having a positive experience in the past is the 3rd most important reason why people trust franchise dealers, and it's the #1 reason why they trust independent dealers. And those are pretty compelling metrics when you think about it in those terms. So when people see that others have had a good experience with the dealer, it builds social proof that establishes trust right from the very start, probably even before they make contact with you and when they're still looking at your listings. So it's a simple thing to do that's really quick to implement. You could do in the next 10 minutes. You just need to encourage your teams to encourage the customers to go onto CarGurus once they finish dealing with you, leave a review for you, and it's an incredible place to start. And again, will from the very get-go demonstrate your integrity and the way that you start building trust with customers.
So I suppose now as a society, everybody is used to looking at when they're buying something on Amazon or wherever, they're looking for the kind of 4 and 5 star ratings and the positive reviews, aren't they? So it's ingrained in the consumer in a way.
Absolutely. And when you look at our history as a company, so as people may be aware, our founder was a co-founder of TripAdvisor. And the question I often put to people when I'm talking about this is, when was the last time you went and stayed in a hotel or booked a holiday without looking at reviews of other travelers? And it's just that you would just never do that. And it's because that building that social proof of trust in the resort or the airline or the hotel, or in this case, the car dealer, is just of critical importance to people. And as you mentioned, Amazon, again, whenever I buy something off Amazon, I look at the reviews straight away, and you look for the ones with 4 or 4.5 or 5 stars. So I would say that that's a really important factor, and something that people can start here and now, right today. They can start making an impact on that in their own businesses.
Okay, thank you, James. One here, I guess it's a bit about first impressions. Do you find the curb appeal of a dealer has a significant influence on a potential consumer's initial trust? All important first impressions.
Important first impressions. So from the report's perspective, I'm struggling to remember if that was a factor that we included, because it gets very specific then of a dealer, specific dealers being surveyed instead of just types of dealers. So I don't think that was covered in the first in the Car Buyers Trust Index. However, I would say on a personal note, if you first impressions do count, and if you turn up at a dealership and it looks pristine and very welcoming, I think is equally as important as being neat and tidy, then that's always going to make it a more welcoming environment. So I'm not sure if it impacts trust, but certainly curb appeal is going to be a factor.
And I guess on that as well, it's not just curb appeal; it's the digital kind of curb appeal as well. If a consumer is then moving on to find out more about the dealer from their own website, that needs to be appealing as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And as we've just established as well, that if you already have a stack of good reviews online, before the customer even makes their way through to your website or turns up at your dealership, there will already be that curb appeal is almost secondary to their understanding and their trust in your integrity in your business, because of the social proof they've seen before they even arrive. So yeah, you're absolutely right that the online presence is every bit as important.
Okay, thank you, James. Another question here. Again, pointing out, would it be more credible coming from word of mouth from the consumer themselves than the dealer promoting their own integrity and trust? I mean, again, you've talked about reviews already, but what's your view on credibility from the consumer?
I think there's 2 sides to it, aren't there? I think that they go hand in hand. Obviously, and as we saw in the report, recommendations from friends and family are very, very important, and that's the ultimate expression of someone else's opinion. If you know them personally, you're always going to weight that opinion to be more valuable. But I think that in terms of online reviews and then shouting about your own credibility, I think go hand in hand, and you can't start talking about how trustworthy you are without having evidence of that in the form of reviews. So obviously, case studies and testimonials are obviously very important as well. And as a business, that's something that we also look at doing at CarGurus, where we find dealers that have had great success with us and enjoy using our suite of products. So I would say that also works with car dealers. And if you've got customers that have had a great experience with you and you get them to leave you a review, sharing that review that you've got around, I think there's nothing wrong with doing that. And it may at first seem a bit self-centered, but at the same time, if you get great reviews, you should share it.
Ultimately, if it's going to help promote your business, then why wouldn't you? I guess so.
Absolutely, and you should be proud of it as well. When you get great reviews, that make the most of it.
Certainly. Slightly left left field question here. Do consumers trust diesel? I guess this wasn't included in your report, but just do you have a view on that?
You're right. It wasn't included in our report, and the report centred more, obviously, around autonomous vehicles and EVs. I think that we've done some other research on this, and I think the truth of it is that the biggest problem with diesels and the lack of trust, and this was covered in the report, is around the government and how they're implementing taxation and things like that. So I don't think it's about diesel. It's about the way that diesels are perhaps taxed or not taxed, and so on and so forth. So I've always maintained, and certainly in all the research we've done, the right car is the right car for the right person. And someone that does a lot of miles every year up and down the motorway, a diesel is the right car for them. So I think that's more of a situation where the salesperson needs to sell the right car to the right person, and all the uncertainty we've seen around the fuel types has been to do with taxation and punishment of emissions on certain vehicles.
Yeah, I think we've experienced that discussion for dealers as well. The uncertainty from government is the big fear that may be kind of impacting sales. Certainly the feedback that we've received. So next question, or from the person who asked the earlier question about curb appeal, is asking if a potential consumer's trust is poor based on the location reviews and basic website, but the customer likes the car, it's the car they want, and they book a test drive, then how should the dealer then overcome the already set poor trust level? I guess in a way, how can the dealer exceed their expectations and delight them?
Sure. I mean, obviously the biggest challenge to that is going to be getting them to come to the dealership in the first place. They're going to really need to or really want to see that car. I mean, it's either going to be a very unique car, or it's going to be much lower on price, or there's going to be some other factor involved there. So the first thing I'd say is that you're going to have an uphill battle from the get-go. So starting to build up those online reviews and that level of trust initially would always help. But in terms of if the person does come along to the showroom and you do start speaking to them, all I would say is it's about acting in a way that demonstrates that you're trustworthy, and being very transparent and demonstrating integrity from the very moment that they arrive would instantly build trust. And of course, this is before the internet and before all of this happened. It's how car dealers had to operate. You had to try and prove your trust straight away and encourage a customer to do it. And obviously, in days gone by, there were certainly different tactics, because everyone was maybe a little bit more cutthroat in how they dealt with customers, and were just trying to get the sales through as quickly as they could. But just acting in a way that it demonstrates that you've got good intentions, that you're helping them buy the right car for them, and you're not just trying to sell them what you have in stock, would be a really great starting point.
Okay, well that answer, James, kind of runs perfectly into the next question, which is, how do you feel salespeople and managers need to adapt for the future? Well, if at all, really, if those traditional skill sets are still relevant.
Yeah, I think there are still obviously two schools of thought with it, and I think the younger generation of sales staff are certainly more in tune with this. But in my experience, sales these days is more about, people do so much of their research online. Most people do so much of their research online. It's more about guiding people to find the right car for them and make the final few decisions on their purchasing journey, than it is about kind of like convincing them to buy a different car, or just in days gone by, again, people would have walked into a showroom just needing a car, and that being about all that they knew. So I think that in this day and age, I think that just kind of like being a helping hand on the customer's car buying journey, and making it as low friction as possible. So not putting any barriers up, just helping them along the way, and to make the decision that's right for them is all you can really do. And all the whole time, again, and I'm sounding like a stuck record, just demonstrate integrity, that try and prove to them that you've got their best intentions at heart.
Okay, makes sense. We've got time for two more questions. One here, does your research show any difference in consumer trust before compared to post-purchase? Have you looked into that with the study?
Yes, so I don't have the figures to hand, but yeah, because of the way that, if you remember when we were talking about the split of our respondents, the 2,000 plus people we surveyed, some of those people had bought a car in the last 6 months, and it's roughly split into a quarter of each. So about a quarter of them had bought a car in the last 6 months, a quarter had bought a car in the last 6 months and were buying another car, a quarter were buying a car in the next 6 months, and a quarter just own a car. So by that split of 4 people, we do have a breakdown. As I say, I don't know it off the top of my head, but once the report's out, you'll certainly be able to look at that. And there are differences, yes, between people's kind of, I suppose, memory of having bought a car versus their experience in the here and now of being in the process of buying a car. They do vary.
Okay, and that detail will be in the report then. That's
Yeah.
Okay, and last one then before we wrap up. So how will the trust index influence what CarGurus will be doing in the months ahead?
It's a great question. So when we set out on this, actually, it was a research project and so my role in terms of public relations, it was designed to create some thought leadership pieces and kind of like help dealers interact with consumers and build trust. And also there are going to be consumer facing side of this that help consumers build trust with dealers in terms of making sure they get a great deal on a great car. But as we've been going through this, we've realized the value in it. So our B2B marketing team are working on some content to share with the dealer community to really, help everyone level up their game and be the best that they can be. So really, the way it's going to inform us is in helping dealers in every way that we can. But as we go through it, it may be that we find that there are ways that we can streamline other parts of our site, if that's how reviews are left or how reviews are displayed or so on and so forth. And the other thing I'd say as well is that this is not a one-time thing. The idea of this is for it to be a yearly report so that we can track the trends in trust over time and evolve ourselves and help the dealer community also evolve and build trust with their customers and hopefully have great success in business.
That's good to hear. I'm sure the whole industry will be keen to track the trends kind of year on year. So there'll be plenty then for them to act upon as they see that consumers' attitudes are changing. So thank you very much, James. We'll wrap up there. Thank you very much for today's presentation. I'm sure it's given our listeners plenty to think about. If you would want to listen to it or view it again, there will be a video link sent out to you, and also there'll be a banner on AM Online for you to click through to see it as well. So thank you for joining us today and taking an interest in this webinar. There may well be more webinars from AM in the coming months, so please keep an eye on AM Online and your daily newsletters for details of those. So thanks again for listening, and goodbye.